Okay, welcome again, everyone. We have about 12 attendees so far. We had about 25 that pre-registered, so hopefully people continue to trickle in. This meeting will be recorded and it can be shared later on if your neighbors and friends and family miss this. But again, good evening and welcome. My name is Matt Weir. I'm a landscape architect and project manager for this playground renovation project. I work at Montgomery Parks and in the Park Development Division. And thank you so much for calling in and taking time out of your busy schedule to discuss this exciting project. So hopefully people still keep joining and let's get started. So we have several Montgomery Parks staff on the line tonight, and we represent a diversity of disciplines. So we have landscape architects, we have civil engineers, we have the team that manages and maintains the park, we have playground inspectors, and we have park police on the call as well. And behind the scenes, we have our public affairs team helping this meeting to run smoothly, and they help to advertise the meeting. So if you got a postcard in the mail or saw a sign in the park, it is thanks to them. So thanks to the internal team. And again, thanks for you all for being here tonight. We're really excited for this meeting. Before I get too far along, I do want to acknowledge State Senators Ariana Kelly and State Delegates Mark Corman, Sarah Wolek, and Sarah Love. And they together collectively represent Maryland Legislative District 16, and they very importantly sponsored a bond bill for this playground renovation project. So we thank them and we thank you for being here as well. A couple of notes on housekeeping before we get too far into the presentation. As I mentioned earlier, this meeting will be recorded and eventually uploaded to YouTube and then linked to on the playground renovation website. So if you'd like, you can go back and watch this recording again or share it with your friends. If you have any questions at any point during tonight, be sure to use the Q&A box on Zoom. Send your questions in, and the Parks team will be keeping an eye on those questions, and we will answer them towards the end of the meeting. Following tonight's meeting, we have an online survey about the playground renovation project, and it's linked below with the QR code. And at any time during this project, if you would like to reach out and get in touch with me, my contact information is on the screen as well. All of these links will be repeated a couple times tonight. So if you miss it right now, no worries. We'll bring it up again later on. The agenda for tonight, we have about 90 minutes, and we hope to get through this presentation in about 30, so we can leave a majority of the time for questions and discussion from you all. We'll start with a bit of a primer on the Park Development Division's playground renovation program, what it entails and what it is. Then we'll talk a bit about the site specifically, existing conditions. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the site, but if not, it's good to just touch base and make sure we all understand the site that we're working with. Then we'll transition to some ideas for the new playground, what the playground project itself includes and what the scope is, and some examples to hopefully spur some imagination and some ideas and preferences for you all. Then we'll close with the schedule and next steps before turning it over to questions and discussion, as I mentioned. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with the playground renovation program. Montgomery Parks really values playgrounds in our county park system, and we recognize that playgrounds are not just a place to play, but it's a really critical part of each child's development. And it's not just physical development, it's also social, cognitive, emotional development as well. So playgrounds are a place for kids to communicate with each other, listen, take turns, hopefully, make friendships with their kids their age and interact with older generations as well. Emotionally, it's a good place for them to build confidence and self-esteem as they challenge themselves on new equipment, building confidence. Of course, they become more flexible and agile and get better balance as they play on the new equipment. And cognitively, they learn some motor skills, coordination, language development, social awareness, uh, stimulating the senses. All these things happen on a playground. It's a place to instill creativity and imagination. Again, bringing different generations together, caregivers and kids side by side. Um, and of course, there's a sense of community as well. So for all these reasons, we view playgrounds and play as perhaps the most influential catalyst for growth and learning during childhood. Montgomery Parks has about 275 playgrounds throughout the county, and each month, each playground is inspected by a certified playground safety inspector, or CPSI. And the inspectors are looking for certain criteria to determine when a playground comes to the end of its life cycle. And the playgrounds that come to the end of their life cycle rise to the top for replacement. And replacement playgrounds or new playgrounds are funded primarily through the Capital Improvements Program, or CIP. The average life cycle of a playground is about 20 years. When a playground becomes older than 20 years, it does not mean that it's not safe. It just means that's the average lifespan for a playground. But they're inspected each month or every 6 weeks or so to make sure that they are indeed safe. Our current funding typically renovates about 6 playgrounds per year. And when you do the math and think about how many playgrounds we have in the county and how many we can replace a year based on funding, they're not being replaced every 20 years. Fortunately, on this project, as I mentioned earlier, we have the state delegation who has supported this bond bill and requested $400,000 for the playground, which would supplement CIP, or Capital Improvement Program, funding for this playground. And again, with so many playgrounds and all the inspections that we do, we need a systematic approach for determining how we replace them and which playgrounds are to be replaced first, or maybe later, or farther down the road. And our CPSI team, inspector team, they are looking at the playgrounds for these criteria: condition, the age of the playground, the presence of treated wood on the playground, their priority level. Our inspectors know the playgrounds perhaps better than anyone else, so they really have a good grip on what the needs are. So if a playground has a missing part or a missing component, or something keeps getting damaged, they have a good sense of what the priorities are. So they assess that as well. And we take into account equity and making sure that we are fairly distributing new projects throughout the county as a whole. So as I mentioned, Merrimac is over 20 years old. Condition, it has a slide that is out of repair and fenced off. It has wood decks, and our inspectors have been saying that this needs to be replaced. So for those reasons, we're here tonight, and we are renovating this playground. And safety is top of mind for Montgomery Parks and all our projects, but especially playgrounds. And while there is no federal safety law for playgrounds, states and MNCPPC, we do follow a standard of care. And specifically at Montgomery Parks, we follow these criteria on the screen. The CPSC is a federal guideline that aims to reduce big injuries on playgrounds, not a scraped knee, but a real big injury. The ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, you may be familiar with this. This includes the pathways, for example, to lead to a playground and accessibility within the playground itself. ASTM is a international set of standards for performance, and they pertain to lots of things in the world, but related to playgrounds, they relate to things such as a playground in a public facility and the requirements for that, play surfacing standards, impact attenuation, use zones, which is the clear space around a particular piece of equipment, and lab testing of materials and equipment as well. And finally, IPEMA is an industry organization that certifies play equipment and surfacing. So shifting gears to this park specifically, I'm sure you're, again, mostly familiar with this park, but in case you're not, let's talk a bit about existing conditions. This is, of course, located in Bethesda at the southwestern corner of the county, right between River Road and Clara Barton Parkway, Capitol Crescent Trail, and the Beltway in River Road. There are many nearby parks, so we encourage you to get out and explore all the parks, not just this neighborhood park. The parks in blue on the screen do have playgrounds. So again, I encourage you to get out there and explore them when you have the time. Zooming in even farther, this is the parcel. This is 10 acres. About 75% of those 10 acres is forested. And fun fact, this was acquired by Parks, I believe in 1971, or acquired by MNC PPC, I should say. The core of the park, or what you may be most familiar with, is at the northern end of the park. This includes the playground, the parking lot, the courts, and the multi-purpose fields. And Winston Drive is the road that leads into the park and into the parking lot. As I mentioned, the built amenities are at the northern end of the park. I've zoomed in here a bit, and I want to show this just to give a sense of the extensive tree cover on the site. The playground is actually, you can't even see it in this photo. It's at the northeastern corner of the tennis court. So if you were just looking at aerial photos, you would have no idea it was here. So it's very shady. There are many trees nearby, which are, of course, a great resource, but it's important to keep in mind as we design the park. We also had a topographic survey recently completed. So you see some of that line work on the plans. The topographic survey gives us a really detailed base map of existing conditions. And what it confirmed, we knew this already, but it confirmed it. There's very steep slopes throughout the site, not just around the playground, but also within the playground itself. We also were able to see just how small this playground is currently. It's only 2,700 square feet, which is quite small by our normal standards. And it's tough to tell when you're standing in the field out there, but there's 7 feet of drop from the northern end of the playground here, if you can see my mouse, to the southern end. So that's a really steep playground and something we try to address. The existing equipment, there are 4 pieces, 3 of which are in operation at the moment, labeled here A, B, C, D on the plan. A is an arch climber. B is a 2 to 5 climber structure with some slides, of course, and this is the piece that has wood. C is a freestanding spiral slide. This is the one that's fenced off at the moment for safety reasons. And D is a pair of basket swings that mainly for kids 2 to 5. The surfacing on the playground is engineered with fiber, and the edging, it has timber edging around the playground. And we've heard from the community, and inspectors have heard from the community, that this is not exactly a playground that's highly sought after at the moment. There's just not a lot of challenging equipment for kids older than 5, really. So that's, again, something we'd like to address with this project. We want to increase the play value for not just kids 2 to 5, but also 5 to 12. This is a view from the southern end. Again, hard to tell by the photo, but where this photo was taken is about 6 or 7 feet below where that arch climber is, way in the back here. And that's a slope that is far too steep for a playground. And then the steep slopes outside of the playground as well. Again, these are about a 3-to-1 slope or a 33% slope. We need to keep that in mind as we design the playground. Obviously, that's a limitation for how big the playground could be. I think everyone's getting the idea that this is a very steep site, and here's 2 more images in the parking lot that show just how steep this site is and some of the challenges associated with that. At the park entry, this is in the top left is the Winston Drive cul-de-sac, and that's looking towards River Road. And then I turned around, I looked into the park. This is essentially the park property line, and the playground is at the highest elevation in the park, which has some benefits and challenges. And there is a stop sign at the property line and views down to the tennis court. Okay, so that's enough about existing conditions. Let's talk a bit about what success for this playground renovation project would look like. What are we trying to accomplish here? And these goals are not listed in a specific order, but as I mentioned before, we really want to increase the play value. So that's not only a diversity of equipment, but different types of equipment, different ages being served, and just a bigger playground than what's out there now. Improving accessibility, that includes within the playground itself, but also accessibility to the playground we're seeking to address as well. But accessibility also means things like a communication board, like what you see on the screen now, and the components of the playground itself being accessible. As I mentioned before, enhancing safety is always top of mind, so we keep this in mind while selecting equipment and the surfacing, and safely protecting kids from the driveway that's not too far away from the playground. Other goals include protecting environmental resources, so the forest edge, adding stormwater management, planting new trees, reducing erosion, all very important for protecting the environment, providing comfort, primarily seating for adults and caregivers. There is no seating by the playground now, and when you're out watching your kids, it's really nice to have a comfortable place to sit. And if you have a nice view of the park, even better as well. And working with those existing slopes, we want to design a playground that complements the site, not force a design on the site. So we need to figure out, okay, how do we site a new playground on this steep slope and make it blend in? And of course, ease of maintenance is always important in our facilities. So again, this is the existing location of the playground in pink. And I'm going to transition to a very conceptual layout of kind of preliminarily what we're thinking of. We're calling this a spatial design concept. And what it shows in this white bubble is a drop-off space for ADA access, but it also doubles for maintenance access. When you step out of your vehicle, a small entry space to walk into the park that's shown with that yellowish orange color. And then this idea of a two-terraced playground. So the big green circle is an upper terrace, and the aqua circle, a little bit smaller below, is a lower terrace. And that helps to flatten out this site, but also kind of step the playground down as the existing site slopes. And there would be a walkway that connects everything from the drop-off to the lower play. And I should again mention, this is just a very preliminary idea. We want to hear from you all first before we take it too far. And another aspect of this that I should mention is stormwater management. We're trying to figure out where that would best be located. And finally, one more point that's not shown on the screen, but I want to highlight is we're considering a speed bump by the stop sign to help people actually stop at the stop sign, slow down as they enter the park. So the really exciting stuff is the equipment. And as I mentioned, we're looking at equipment for kids 2 to 5 and 5 to 12. And on the screen are a couple examples of types of equipment suitable for children 2 to 5. And I'll show 5 to 12 in the next slide. And I just want to point out that these are just examples of types of play. It's not the equipment we're choosing for this site, but sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. So when we say crawl tube, there's an example. But equipment for 2 to 5 includes things like simple bridges, easy climbers, balancing activities, springing toys, jumping, bouncing, spinning, a whole host of things. So hopefully this spurs your imagination and it helps you to think about what types of play you and your kids or the children you look after are most interested in. Graduating up to 5 to 12, the equipment gets higher and bigger and more challenging. And again, a couple examples on the screen, not pieces we've chosen for this site. This would never all fit in the site we have, but just something to spur the imagination. I do want to point out that we know swings are extremely popular and probably the most sought after piece of equipment on playgrounds. This site is still challenged by how big we can make the playground. So if swings, traditional swings are on the site, it most likely is at the expense of, it takes up space that another piece of equipment could go. So I just want us all to maybe think about maybe less traditional types of swings, like what you see here in the top middle photo. Something like this, for example, takes up less space than a big belt swing that you might be most accustomed to seeing. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying no traditional swings. I just want everyone to be aware that this site is constrained spatially, and we want to increase play value as much as possible. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about equipment at this site. And of course, there's other improvements too, that it's not just about the equipment, but we're looking at things like a couple trees being planted, for example, stormwater management, seeding. I do think that an upper and lower terrace can have play value in and of itself, because between the upper and lower, there might be an opportunity for something like an embankment slide, like you see in the top middle photo, for example. Okay, we're getting close to the end of this presentation, about to open it up to discussion. I want to make a quick plug again for taking the online public survey. We use a website called Open Town Hall, and it is as simple as a public survey. Hopefully it's an exciting, a fun survey to take for once. It only takes about 3 to 5 minutes, I'd say. There's, I think, about 8 questions, pretty straightforward, a mixture of open-ended and multiple choice. And some of the questions that we ask are on the screen now. And we can certainly talk about these now, but think about it a bit and let us know your preferences and ideas and hopes and wishes on the survey. And again, you can scan that QR code, or you can type that link into your browser. I think we're going to put a link to the survey in the chat here at this meeting. And if worse comes to worse, you can always just Google Open Town Hall, Merrimac survey and playground, and that'll probably get you to where you need to go. So just talking a bit about next steps, we're of course gathering feedback tonight and via the online survey. After we get that feedback and have a chance to digest it and think about and analyze what's being requested, we will develop a playground concept based on that feedback, and we will eventually post a concept on the project website for your review. And we'll be if you leave your email address with us in the Open Town Hall survey, or if you pre-registered for this meeting, we'll be sure to send you an update when that rendering is posted. And big picture, what the next steps are include what's on the screen now. So we've already done the project initiation. That includes things like internal kickoffs and the topographic survey and visiting the site and analyzing, what could possibly work out here. We're of course meeting tonight, and there will be the community survey, which again is live now. By the summer, we'll post that concept design on the website to get your feedback. And with your feedback on the concept, we'll then transition into the construction documents and permits that are required for this project. And because this project will require permits, it does lengthen the amount of time it takes, unfortunately, but we're anticipating construction starting in the summer of 2025. I'd also like to note that I'm sure there are some questions or ideas about the tennis and basketball courts. We do have a separate project happening. We anticipate in the fall of 2024 to resurface the basketball and tennis courts in their current location, but just give them a refresh as well. So that's new pavement on top of the existing and new basketball goals, I believe. But that is a separate project, but we want everyone to be aware of it. Okay, here are the links again. My name is Matt Weir, and I'm the project manager. You can email me at that email address. I think my email is also on the project website, so you can get it there. The project website is the top QR code, the survey, the open town hall is the bottom. And again, please feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have comments or questions about the playground. But if you have questions more generally about the park or about, natural surface trails, for example, or trees need to be pruned, for example, any general question, please reach out to our customer service team, and they will take your comment or question and direct it to the appropriate person at parks. We have a really big staff here, a lot of experts in their area of expertise, and they can get you the best answer. And of course, if you ever have safety concerns in the park, be sure to contact Park Police. And I think with that, we can open it up for discussion, and I will pass it off to Tricia McManus, who is the design section supervisor. So thank you all for being here. We're really looking forward to having a discussion.
Okay, thanks, Matt. As Matt mentioned, we do have our project team on the call tonight, and we will work together to try to address your questions and comments. And our team includes Eric Sue, who is our project engineer, Josh Arnett, our engineering section manager. We have Todd Holmes, our regional operations manager for the Southern Region Parks. Derek Moore, who is our playground program manager for the Southern Parks. Tony Galippo, our playground inspector for this particular park. We have Javier Marino, our water quality manager. Officer Derek Williams from Park Police, and we have Ben Tauber, who's our countywide playground program manager. So we have a lot of staff here to try to address the array of comments that you might have. And what I'm going to do is try to direct the questions to those I think might be best able to answer them. But I'm just asking our team who's on the call to just please jump in if you have information to add, so that we're addressing the comments more as a discussion and making sure we're thoroughly discussing the issues that are here. So I'm just going to go in order, and please, please feel free to keep adding comments and questions in the Q&A so we can have a good, thorough discussion. So I'm going to start at the top, and the first question from Lucy is there a way to position a dog run in the park? And that, many of the neighbors walk dogs here. And actually, the project budget that we have is really limited to the playground renovation itself, and as well as that separate project for the courts. So this isn't something we would consider at this time. And I think, it is a broader, we do have a park planning unit that identifies countywide locations for facilities. So, I mean, that would be, they have been identifying, specific locations within the park system where appropriate facilities like dog parks go. But those kinds of facilities do tend to be destinations. We only have about, and I'm not sure off the top of my head, but something like 9 to 10 dog parks right now in the county. So they do people tend to drive to them, and, so they do tend to, draw a lot of people to the parks. And, a small neighborhood park like this might not be something that we would consider, a good choice for a facility like that. But, just in summary, it's just it's not part of the scope or the budget that we have right now. And so I hope that helps. If anyone else has any thoughts on that from our team, please feel free to jump in. I'll keep moving. Will the renovations also include a safer walkway from the road to the multi-purpose field and perhaps integrated with the playground? And I'm going to ask Josh and Eric a little bit about if you could maybe briefly describe the work that is going on with the court renovation, because I think there may have been some proposals for, accessible access. I don't know if, the field is close to the courts. I don't know if we were intending to improve the access to both the courts and the field. So Josh or Eric, could you add some comments?
Hi, everybody. This is Eric, project engineer. So the basketball court will be renovated with new asphalt, color coding, new basketball standards. So that would be your basketball hoops. And the tennis courts will be renovated with a renewed playing surface. The fence will be replaced along with the tennis net posts and new practice board. And the tennis courts will remain for tennis use only, so there are no plans currently to modify that in any way to pickleball. As for the path to the playing field, there is ADA access to the courts from the parking lot via the pathway. We there's potential for a pathway to the field, but that would have to be considered separately.
So just asking, and maybe Josh, is that something we would be feasible to include with this project?
I think, we'll investigate it. I think as part of this project, because of the topography, it would be difficult to include a walkway. I think the option of getting an ADA kind of access to that field would be pretty long, but it's something we'll look at. It'll be probably closer associated with the court project for kind of our review. So we'll look into it. If it's possible, we'll do it, but.
Okay, great. Okay, the next comment was from Jane, who's happy to see there might be some fencing, along the road edge. Matt, would you like to expand a little bit on what might be proposed there? Just if there's any additional
Sure. Yes, just
information.
Yes, thank you. Just 1 minute. Let me pull that slide back up that shows the concept. So again, given the site the challenging nature of the site and the limited space that we have, this playground is beside the roadway. And that playground fence, I want to clarify, that's really intended to be just near the driveway. We are not intending to fully enclose the playground with a fence. We have found that when that happens, the playground can become a dog park in itself. And that's not the intent. So we're envisioning that the fence would be limited pretty much to the northern end of the playground, just as a bit of a safety buffer and a barrier to separate the kids playing from the roadway.
Okay, thanks, Matt. The next question is, would there be structured shading for the areas that don't have tree cover? And Matt, I know, could you come back on again and describe for us, where we're having the tree cover? We do have quite a lot of shade in that playground, which I think will continue to be quite shady. And we are removing a few trees that in order to expand that upper play area, which will let some additional light in, but there will be quite a bit of shade, I believe, in that playground.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, especially in the morning, with the forest edge being on the east side. In the morning, this playground would continue to be shady. I think as the sun rises in the sky and it turns from morning and early morning to afternoon, there would be less shade. As Tricia mentioned, some trees would have to be removed in order to increase the size, but we're working really hard to save a tulip poplar. You may all be familiar with it, and that tulip poplar could cast some shade on the playgrounds currently and in the future as well. And we are exploring preliminarily where some new shade trees could go, although we're talking perhaps one or two or three, just to increase the species diversity of trees near the playground. But those trees newly planted, of course, don't cast very large shadows quite some time.
And some play equipment does have roofs that can help provide some shade, but if we spent our budget on shade structures, that would take away from the budget that we have for the playground and the equipment. So if in a case like this where we have quite a bit of shade, we probably would not add formal shade structures, but we could have roofs on the play equipment to provide some additional shade. The next question from Benjamin is, have we thought about noise mitigation, especially for the homes adjacent to the park? And that there seems to be more room to place the playground farther in. And maybe Matt, you could address that as well. But we are not changing any of the uses within the park. So, I don't think the noise would increase from the sound that's there now. But Matt, I know you've looked very carefully about the trees and the grading, in terms of where that playground can be located, but we are quite limited, I think, in terms of grades and where we can locate it. And it is moving a bit, further from the property line, but could you expand on that?
I think you hit it on the nail on the head there. If we were to relocate this playground elsewhere in the park, it would likely be at the expense of some other existing amenity that the community uses now, such as like the tennis court or the basketball court or the multi-purpose field, or it would require moving into the woods, which we really don't want to do. We want to protect the forest edge as much as possible, which is what this concept is showing. We did explore an area that's on the screen now that's a little hard to see, but if you're familiar with the site, it's like a square shaped open lawn that's just north of the basketball and west of the tennis courts. But that area is far too small to really make a playground that would be dynamic and engaging and of much value. It would be farther away, but it honestly, it just would not add play value to the space. And we are, as Tricia mentioned as well, we are pushing this playground, at least part of the equipment and part of the play space, farther away from the property line with the concept that's shown here on the screen.
Okay, thanks, Matt. This next question is saying that it sounds like the slope surrounding the playground is considered negative. And why is this? And I'd like to, in general, for installing playground equipment, the playground surface itself has to be relatively flat because the decks and the components have to be relatively level to work. So I don't think we're thinking that slope is negative, but we do have to have kind of flat platforms to place the equipment. And, as Matt was saying, perhaps we could use the slope, in between the play areas as as a play component as well. And I'd like to ask Derek Moore, and Tony, our two playground manager and inspector, if you wanted to expand a little bit more on why we need kind of level play areas with respect to maintenance of the wood fiber, or any other, information you'd like to add to, the discussion about slopes on a playground.
I mean, like you said, you kind of said it perfectly when it comes to the surfacing and wood fiber that they're going to be installing as a surface. If there's a slope and we have heavy rains, the majority of it is going to wash out, and then we're going to have to spend way more time adding more wood fiber and digging out mud and sediment and stuff like that from storms and things. And Tony, sounded like you were about to say something.
Yeah, I'm just going to add too. It's also a hazard for, kids are going to jump off structures, that kind of thing. So you really want them landing on smooth surfaces. And then, of course, like Derek said, washouts that we have issues constantly, even, level surfacing. So.
Okay, thanks. I hope that addresses that. Matt, did you want to add anything to that about the use of slopes and play? I'm just throwing it out there, but
No, I think you all touched on it very well, and I want to just add to those responses that I think that the slopes on the site, while a challenge, also they're a great opportunity as well to do something that's a bit unique. And what I'm thinking of and referring to is this two-level playground that kind of steps the play down the slope, and they're interconnected with this walkway. But it helps to blend the proposed design into the existing site that we're working with. So while the slopes do kind of pinch the space we have available, we're really trying to work with the site we have and not against it. So I think it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity as well. And one of the opportunities worth mentioning is that lower circle, for example, does provide a nice view down towards the tennis court, and that's something that we would try to highlight and take advantage of as we move the design process forward.
okay. And the next question, Matt, I'm going to direct to you also. It's from Susan, who lives adjacent to the playground and is asking if we could add some buffer shrubs or trees between the playground. And I'm not sure which property is. I'm assuming it's the immediately adjacent line uphill. But, is there the ability? I know there's forest in that area, but is there the ability to add some additional screening or buffering?
I think that's definitely something that we can look at over the course of the next phases of the design. And I believe it was Susan who asked that question. Susan, feel free to when you take the survey, please just, if you wish, include your contact information. We can keep in touch about that that question you had as the design moves forward.
Okay, and I'm sorry I skipped one from Bill Frick, who's asking if we can collaborate with Montgomery County Department of Transportation to look at speed mitigation on Winston, and that there's a lot of people driving very fast on that street. And Josh, I want to ask you about this as our lead engineer. Is that something we could look at? Of course, we don't have any jurisdiction over Winston, but is that something that we could reach out to DOT to at least pass on, the concerns about speed mitigation?
Yeah, and this is all over the county. We get this request a lot. We do collaborate a lot with DOT on our own Vision Zero goals, on their own Vision Zero goals. So, I mean, yeah, we don't have jurisdiction, but we absolutely can reach out. And it's a pretty easy conversation. We have projects in this area. Neighbors have concerns about speeding, and we can even hopefully get a response from them. So I have another engineer that works on a lot of Vision Zero projects, and I'll have him reach out and kind of get a official response from DOT. And obviously we're more than happy to, if they're on board, more than happy to help out with that and timing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Josh. From David, we have a question. Is regrading the multi-purpose field a possibility? The field doesn't drain well and is uneven. It often results in an unsuitable environment due to excessive mud and holes. And I'm going to ask Todd, maybe if you are familiar with the condition of the field, and Josh, I know that's really not part of the projects that we have going on, but you know, I'm not sure we have the funding to do that, but I'm just gonna ask if you could talk a little bit about are you familiar with the field and some of the issues and what
Yeah.
might be able to be done? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good evening, everyone. Todd Holmes, I'm the Regional Operations Manager. And in regards to this particular field, we just recently conducted a large-scale condition assessment handled by our maintenance teams to go ahead and classify just common things in their condition on the fields. That was conducted over the winter. We've already have our spring and summer renovation lineup scheduled so we can shut down the fields responsibly and block permits, allow them to establish. And we just recently established them for the fall season as well. We did note that it is in need of some regrading, sod work, soil conditioning, things like that. It is not queued up for this particular fall, but in my next trip out to the Cabin John, greater Cabin John management area, I'll get feet on this field, compare it to the assessment notes, and see exactly when that gets stacked up. But no, it is not slated to be one part of this, and it is not in this next upcoming calendar year for operational renovations.
Okay, thanks. This question is about, and I'm going to ask maybe Derek Moore and Tony and Matt about this one, that are we looking at the trees around the playground? There's a mulberry tree that makes a mess on the slides every year. So, I'm just going to ask our playground team how you deal with issues like I know we work very closely with our urban forester on ensuring that that trees above playgrounds are limbed up and that there's no conflicts with equipment or hazard trees. But Derek and Tony, what do we do in a situation where we have sort of a tree that's creating a mess in the playground, like a mulberry?
We have a list of playgrounds that we normally go around and we'll pressure wash them. So, but like Matt said at the beginning, we have a lot of playgrounds, so we typically don't get to them every year. Sometimes we'll get to them every other year, but if there's an issue where the playground is very dirty, the inspector will see it while he's there and he'll make a work order for one of our repair guys to go out and clean it. And if it's not getting cleaned, you can always call customer service and let us know, and we can get out there and get it cleaned as long as we have the time to do so.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I'm sorry, trees, as far as limbs getting too close, we actually have requirements on how close they can get to them. We'll either trim them ourselves or we will contact the tree crew to, either limb up or remove trees.
Okay. And Matt, are you familiar with where the mulberry is in this case? Is it a tree that we were gonna keep, or is it one that was?
It's over in the forest edge, but I wanted to add that as this project goes farther into design, we will be doing a detailed tree inventory in the area that surrounds this proposed playground design. And that inventory would include an assessment of all the tree species, the tree sizes, and their condition. So we'll be documenting that. And if there are trees in poor condition, for example, we'll know at that time and make plans for their pruning or possible removal to occur, if not before construction of the playground, during the construction of the playground. But I think that mulberry is on the forest edge, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. We'll
Okay.
definitely pick it up as the project moves farther along.
Okay, and also just reiterating what you may have already said, Matt, is we do work with our chief urban forester on all of our projects. So he comes out with us when we're working on design plans and assesses the condition of the trees and what needs might be for pruning or for maintenance. And so we do work hand in hand as we do our design plans with our forestry experts on the trees. So we do have a question here from Susan on, and this is a great question about stormwater management, drainage, and grading are very important topics given the topography of this park and the sensitivities. And these are two separate questions, but the one on stormwater management, I'd like to direct to Javier and Josh and Eric maybe about how we are planning to address stormwater management on the site. What do we have there now? And what are the issues that we face on this site with stormwater management? And then the second question is about electrical, but we can talk about that separately. But any thoughts about our existing facilities and new facilities and how our strategy for dealing with that?
Javier, can I jump in with just a broad statement first?
Sure.
All right, so this is Josh Arnett again, engineering section manager. Yeah, for all of our projects, we look at, that's why we assign project engineers on. We look at drainage. So right now you have a courts project and a playground project. So we will be looking at drainage associated with that. So I'll let Javier talk more about what's on the site, and Eric can talk more about the specifics of these projects.
Yes, good evening. There are like three stormwater facilities over there. They're like treating the parking lot area, the tennis court, and the multipurpose field. There is no stormwater management for the playground by itself right now. In regard of the proposed stormwater management facility, my contribution is always what is good to install right next to playgrounds. We do have like other facilities that we were able to learn what not work near playground facilities. So that will be my contribution to the program, and we will maintain the facilities when they are installed.
Thank you. So Eric, do you have
Yeah.
thought? Can you add what we would do here and what
Yeah,
we're thinking about?
so as Josh said, drainage and stormwater management is an important consideration that we incorporate into all of our parks projects. So the drainage for the playground project, Matt's playground will have underground storage that will allow for retention and management of some of the stormwater runoff. Also, the stormwater management facilities shown in Matt's spatial conceptual design, those will provide further management of stormwater. lastly, the court's grading will be adjusted during the court's renovations, and we will be avoiding the steep path to the southwest of the basketball court and towards the existing and new stormwater management. And Javier, I believe you've requested service from MDE for the existing facilities to improve the capacity for their storage. So with that said, the future conditions of the park will have greatly improved stormwater management and drainage.
Okay, thanks. And the existing facilities, I guess I see one on this diagram at the lower end of the parking lot. Is that an existing?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
And there is one on the, yes, you can see it on the lower section right there. And the other is farther down but on the multi-purpose field.
okay. So we will be adding, the existing playground doesn't have stormwater management, but that will be added as part of our project. So, okay. And then the next question from Josh is that he says one of the neighbors noticed signs indicating that infrastructure might be added near their yard. And I assume this does not mean a new road. No, I don't think so. But is someone familiar with that signage? I'm going to direct this to Todd and maybe our engineering team who might know. I don't think we've posted any signs, Matt, with respect to the playground, but is anyone on our team here familiar with those signs?
If I could jump in quickly, we did post 2 signs in the park indicating that this meeting was going to be occurring, and there was a QR code to register for the meeting. I'm not sure if that's the sign that is being referred to in this question, but there were 2 signs that advertised the playground renovation project and the meeting. So perhaps that's what's being referred to, but I'm not positive based on the question.
Okay. Is anyone else aware of any other signage? But we do try to notify, park users by posting signs on site when we're having a public meeting. And if that's what it might be, then it might have been related to the playground project. But is anyone else on the team familiar with any other signs that might have been posted?
I was there last week. I didn't see any other signs than the ones Max are talking about.
Okay, thanks. Okay. The next comment from Craig about that trees were taken down after one of the storm. And is anything planned for the hilltop where the large pine trees are? Hopefully we don't have another one fall on the playground. And I think, Matt, 1 or 2 of those pine trees are next to the playground will be coming out. Is that correct? Or we're thinking maybe coming out?
Yes, that's correct. It's a little bit hard to see on this graphic, but again, here's the existing site and the existing playground in pink. There are 2 pine trees here, and there's one that's sloping and it's on the existing steep slope. And based on meeting with the urban forester, these 3 we're proposing to come out. It's never something we want to do, is to cut down trees. We want to protect them best we can. But in this case, when they're potentially threatening the new playground, we have to make the tough decision. But I think this is the white pine tree that's being referred to in the question. And yes, we are proposing to remove it, if that's the one that you're referring to.
We do have another comment of an attendee who would like to keep all the trees intact, and that several trees have been cut down on the playground. in the last year. So can you talk about, there may be some trees that need to come out to replace the playground, but can you expand on where we might be planting additional trees? I mean, our goal is always to save trees too. But, there are situations where they sometimes have to come down, or they might have to come down if they're a hazard. But could you talk about opportunities for additional planting and any efforts we would make to save trees, which we always try to do?
Sure. Yes, thank you. That's a great question. And a couple points I'd like to make. The existing playground here in pink is 2,700 square feet, and we're only able to fit in about 4 pieces of play equipment, which is not providing the play value that we're seeking on site. So if we want to expand this playground and work within the site that we have and work between the forest edge and the steep slope, we do unfortunately have to expand towards those white pines that we were just talking about. When we were doing some initial internal coordination and scoping for this project, we made the tough decision that, okay, if we need to expand this playground to renovate it and make it a more desirable playground, let's protect the trees that are in the forest, which is on the east side of the playground. Let's stay out of that forest when we're just redesigning. And if we need to, expand the playground westward, which again, unfortunately, is towards those white pines, but we're really limited spatially with where this can fit, with where the new playground could fit. In terms of new tree planting, it's something we always like to try to do. And in this case, it's pretty exciting because it offers an opportunity to increase species diversity. So instead of having white pines and red maples, it's an opportunity to add some new trees to provide habitat and ecosystem services and some variety to the tree canopy that's on site. But I think the short answer to that question is we are prioritizing the preservation of the trees in the woods and in the forest, and trying to save that whole cluster of trees that's to the east. That's the priority. And new tree planting locations, I am not positive yet. We will have to think about that a bit more as the design progresses.
Okay, thanks. And I'd also like to add that Matt is a certified arborist, so he cares a lot about trees, as all of our staff and our landscape architects do. But he has a lot of knowledge about trees that also helps in the work that we do. There's a question from Chris to asking us to explain more about what that drop-off zone would entail. And I think that it's intended to provide an ADA accessible parking space. But Matt, I'm asking you to come back again. Could you have some thoughts about how that's going to work? I know we haven't fully designed it yet, but I think the intent was just to get one accessible space. Is that correct?
Yes, it is still preliminary, but the thought process early on is that this could be like a single space that's like a parallel parking space. So you can pull off to the side and either park or maybe just drop off someone, and they could then have an accessible route from that drop off right into the playground itself. And this spot, we located it where we did because this is the high point in the road, so it can have all the proper slopes, which would be less than 2% here, and make sure it's truly ADA accessible. And it's a drop-off space. And another purpose of this space, we really need it no matter what, because it provides maintenance access for the region, the park management team, and the playground safety inspectors, for example, when they need to replenish the engineered wood mulch. So it serves two purposes. And of course, anyone can enter there. for walk-in from that point, but it's essentially a parallel parking space.
Okay, thanks. This next question is about the courts, and it sort of bridges the operations, I think. Todd, I might ask you about this, but a question about the courts. Why is one court always reserved for the purpose of private lessons? And I can't imagine that. I don't know if that's true. Can people permit or reserve a court? This is saying it discourages community from using the facility.
Yeah, sure. I can hop in
okay.
and take this one.
Okay.
It's probably most pointed at, and I can take it to our permits office, because it's my understanding that we do have some select, we do permit tennis courts. We permit them for tournaments. We permit them for tennis activities. However, to my knowledge, you are not to be able to, you're not conducting business with those permits. And so we can look into that further on just permit holders in general. We want our assets and our amenities to be able to be used by the community on a first come, first served basis with general tennis etiquette, you know, and commonalities and taking turns and recognizing when folks are waiting. So we can look into that and see if we are in line with our permitting guidelines. And without having any more information, I can't comment further aside from just looking into it, and perhaps we have an avenue to follow back up. But
Okay, thanks, Todd. This next question from Mark was, I think, a repeat of the comment about speeding vehicles on Winston Drive. So I think Josh has indicated that we will reach out to DOT to see, you know, just bring the issue to their attention and see whether there's any Vision Zero or traffic calming improvements that might be able to be taken care of. And then a comment here that the tennis courts are already used as dog parks, which we do find that's common, that any facility that's fully fenced, you know, often has dogs using it. And I don't know if Todd or anyone wants to add any additional comments on that, but that is just what seems to happen sometimes.
it's nothing revelatory, but yes, it's very common in our parks to have folks disregard leash laws, go to a confined space to allow their dogs to go run off. We do not have the enforcement arm in that, but it is a pervasive problem in any semi-confined amenity that has a fence, where people will steal that opportunity to, you know, run their dogs. So
Okay, thanks. And another comment about, you know, wanting to make sure we maintain the existing trees. There is also a comment about mosquitoes in the summer, and can we avoid equipment that might hold water pooling, which I think that's a good comment. And that's something I'm just reaching out to Matt that we would certainly take into consideration, or if Derek or Tony have some thoughts about equipment that you've seen in the past that does hold water, so that, you know, that's something we steer away from. Do you see that on some other playgrounds? Anyone want to comment on this one?
For the most part, no, and it's actually in the CPS side of kind of avoid standing water in general. There are a couple components that do kind of hold water, even though they have drainage. They're not very well done drainage, and I'd be happy to discuss with Matthew about them and which ones to try to avoid.
Okay, thanks. And, you know, we do, when Matt's looking at potential equipment, we do coordinate all of, our designs with Derek and Tony to, make sure they don't have specific concerns with the playground equipment, and that we're considering the operational side of the of taking care of the playground in the long term. So yes, that's something we'll definitely try to avoid that. And then a comment here that we are changing the use of the area, and I'm not sure I understand that. If maybe that person wants to elaborate on what the concern is, but I'd be happy to address it if I don't know if anyone on our team. I think we're keeping the same uses in the same areas, so I don't understand fully that comment. The next one is, can we explain the choice of wood fiber surfacing as opposed to other playground surfacing materials? And that wood fiber is not accessible, is not accessible for people who use mobility devices. And actually, I'm going to put this to our playground team, but engineered wood fiber is considered an accessible surface. So we use it in probably more than 90% of our playgrounds. We have had, that the surfacing choice is actually a difficult question, because there's pros and cons of all kinds of different types of surfacing, but it technically is considered to be accessible, but of course it's not as accessible as something like a poured in place or a rubber surfacing. We are getting there is a lot of concern about rubber surfacing these days, in terms of what kinds of chemicals might be included in the rubber, in both the tire rubber, the recycled rubber, as well as rubber. So that topic is coming up throughout the county, and actually in the state as well, about what that surfacing is made of, whether it has harmful chemicals in it. There are some national studies being done on that by the state of California and by the EPA that we are tracking. There's no conclusions about that yet, but we are playing it safe a little bit in using the wood fiber as our kind of go-to surfacing, unless there's a really compelling need to use a different type of surfacing. But if Matt or Derek,
I can hop in, Tricia.
Tony, okay, Todd, okay,
Yeah.
good.
So we go with the engineered wood fiber product because yes, it does classify as ADA compliant. It has a very high impact absorption compared to, from any of the fall heights from interactive play surfaces, that especially for this particular playground. All of our products that we assess have pros and cons. All our operations are pretty much set up for engineered wood fiber maintenance and installation. It requires a good bit of effort, but material cost is cheaper than when you have a pour in place product. Your initial investment costs are substantially higher, and maybe your overall funds of playground structures don't go as far. But it kind of hits that middle ground. It is not mulch. If you get the chance, do pick up a piece if you encounter it. You'll notice there are very deliberate ways that it is cut that's repeatable and tested, compared to like a shredded hardwood. So we do have engineered wood fiber in our parks. And one thing that is very clear that is also raises concerns amongst many Montgomery County citizens is the heat and the heat island associated with it in summertime. That is with the pour in place rubber surfacing. So just some of the pros and cons, and those are some of the things that we evaluate in our operation when looking at how we maintain things, not just now after install, but into the future.
Thanks, Todd.
On top of what Todd mentioned, it also does not work in wooded areas because leaves, rotted leaves, you said the mulberries, anything like that's going to make it rubber extremely slick and unsafe. So we try to only use that in open areas.
Okay, thanks. A question here or a comment, what if we could build a deck at where the slope is to create an area for adults to oversee kids playing on the lower area? So that's an interesting idea, Matt. I'm sure we can look at that as we're looking at the design, but that's kind of a nice thought and a good idea. Again, comments about the traffic calming, which is a Department of Transportation issue, not a park issue, but we will certainly reach out and coordinate. And then removing trees and altering the natural slope will cause more erosion and mud, which I don't think our intent is to, and Matt, if you want to add to this, I don't think our intent is to remove, we're moving very selective trees, but I don't think our intent is to make major changes to the existing slopes. The intent is to work with the area that we have, but instead of having a solid slope of the whole play area, just terracing it. So Matt, do you want to add any more to that?
I think that's very well said. And the intent is absolutely not to be regrading that slope. Our project limits would be ending at the top of the existing slope, or a little bit even farther in from the top of the existing slope, but not regrading that existing 3-to-1 slope, and letting that stay just as is and not impacting it.
Okay, thanks, Matt. And here's a vote for keeping the mulberry. So thank you for that comment. And then also a comment about considering how Bannockburn Elementary School side of the neighborhood does not have sidewalk access to this park. Any assistance to get kids safe sidewalk access will increase use of the park. So I'm not sure, is anyone familiar where the Bannockburn Elementary School side of the park is? I'm imagining that's the lower area of the park, but I'm not as familiar with the site as others. But the scope of this project is really the playground, and we're not really looking at community connectors through the park. So our scope is really pretty limited, but I think that's a good comment. We're always looking at connectivity, when we're looking at our parks, but does anyone know where that is? I don't think that's close to the playground, but is anyone familiar with where that
It's
is?
north of the playground, so like
That's-
northwest direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it in any of the areas that we're working, or no?
No, it does come quite a bit off of the current site. Yeah.
Okay. Any comments from operations? Is there like any natural surface trail that could be put in there? Or this is just a bigger issue than what we're looking at? Okay, I guess not. Okay. Moving here, that 8 and 10-year-olds thoroughly enjoy the park as it is. It's not true that more equipment is the answer. And that's I guess that's a good comment, but we are going to renovate the equipment. The equipment is, beyond its life cycle. So that's really the purpose of the project, is to upgrade the playground and bring it up to current standards and provide some additional and more opportunities for play. And why is it a problem for dogs to use the empty tennis courts? Well, let me, since we're getting close on time, let's come back to that one. Let me just see if there's any more comments about the playground. Just glad the playground is expanded. Appreciate the eye to diverse and inclusive playgrounds. Further consideration that ADA requirements are the bare minimum and do not necessarily equal inclusive play spaces. So yes, that's a very good comment. Matt, could you follow up on some ideas that you might have for making these play spaces inclusive? Because that's very true. The ADA is the minimum, and there's a lot of other kinds of activities that could be included, and elements that could be included. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
That is a fantastic comment. We recognize that ADA is the minimum, and it should not become the maximum. It should become the bare minimum we're trying to achieve. As we work further with specific equipment based on the open town hall feedback, and again posting concepts to the website, and as we get farther along in the design process, we will be working with the playground manufacturer who makes the equipment to make sure that the components within the equipment themselves have they're accessible, but they have equipment that's engaging for all types of users. And for example, making sure the transfer platforms are accessible and the proper heights, for example, and making sure that there's a diversity of equipment as well. So we'll work with the manufacturers at that point. I do want to make another plug about the Open Town Hall survey, that if there are specific types of equipment that anyone particularly really enjoys and it finds to be very accessible, please be sure to include that in the Open Town Hall survey. We have a open-ended section that you can type in any answer you want. So if it's not something we list, please include it, and that's the best way for us to really know what's keen to you.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Another comment about the playground, and I'm going to ask Derek and Tony about this, is that Craig has noticed there's bees nesting and crawling around the holes on the equipment, and will the new equipment prevent that? And I'm assuming maybe the bees are on the wood equipment, but have either of you noticed bees in the area?
I haven't noticed bees on the equipment, but there is a lot of holes in the wooden structure, the top structure that's there. From my assumption, I think Tony was telling me in the past that the equipment was made like that so it could be put together like a puzzle piece, so that they could put barriers and play panels and stuff in all different directions to kind of make it a customized playground. But they don't make structures like that anymore. I'm pretty sure what Matt's going to go with is going to be something with aluminum posts, so you're not going to have to really worry about holes being in the structure. That's just old design and poor design. Tony, did you got anything else you want to say on that?
Yeah, I'll just confirm what you said. Those style posts from that manufacturer, it's universal, so they can do different designs and that kind of stuff. So that's why there's holes all through it. I've actually never gotten a complaint at all for bees at that park, but the new stuff will be not wood, so that will help a lot.
I mean, the playground equipment we're typically putting in is metal posts and plastic components, so there won't be wood to burrow in if there's any carpenter bees or anything like that. Okay, let's go back to the oh, someone's been a victim of the park bees, so yeah, it's the holes in the wood. Okay, so hopefully that removing the wood will address those comments. And then and saying that, yeah. So going back to this, we've got a few minutes left, but why is it a problem for dogs to use the empty tennis courts? And actually, we have Officer Williams from Park Police on the call, and Todd, may be able to address some of the operational issues we have with, that kind of use of the courts. And I want to, while Officer Williams is on the call, just, are there any other, areas of concern or issues that you see that Park Police sees in going on in this park?
Good evening, Leslie. I guess as far as any other issues in the park, this is a very quiet park that we have. I just looked at the calls for service for the year 2023, and Park Police only called 5 times, which is very, very good. And everything is mostly just minor things, somebody was in the park. I think at the hours, I think a park rule violation and a parking complaint. But reference to the why you're not allowed to have a dog in the tennis court unleashed. It's kind of a copycat pattern. I mean, number one, it's a park rule violation. You can only have dogs off leash in a designated area, which is a dog park. Any other time, dog must be on leash. But it's very similar sometimes. Like we see, like they mentioned earlier, we have a lot of, sometimes people might have their dogs off leash, and the dog can be very well behaved when we see that. But the next person kind of copycat the same thing, and that dog might not be very aggressive. And so, so like, so, we hate to be that person had to come tell that person. It seems like it's not harming anybody, but before we know it, we have 10 to 15 dogs on in that tennis court be turned into a dog, undesignated dog park. And then a person that really want to play tennis won't be able to use it for its intended purpose. So once again, if it's not a designated dog park, the dog must be on leash at all times.
Okay, thank you. That's good information. We do have a couple questions about the size of the playground, Matt. It's saying right now the existing playground is 2,700 square feet. What is the size plan for the new playground? And then a follow-up comment, do we have a vote if we prefer to keep it smaller? And of course, that we would love to hear those comments in the open town hall. If people really want the playground to sit in its current footprint, we can keep it small. It's just that there won't be much, there might not be much play value there, because the safety zones, on equipment have gotten larger, as these safety guidelines have been developed. So it would just limit what could be done there. But if that is the preference of the community, that's something we would want to hear. So Matt, can you talk about the square footage that's proposed? And then I see we are kind of getting to the end of our meeting, but if you could just address that, I think that's important.
Sure. So typical playgrounds in a neighborhood park like Merrimac, we typically aim for 3,500 square feet to about 5,000. Sometimes it can be a little bit bigger, sometimes a little bit smaller, but that's generally the range that we aim for. We will know more about the square footage as the design continues to evolve and develop.
And we can take into account the preference to keep a smaller playground if that's the overall preference that we hear. But please do go to our open town hall survey and give us your comments there. So I do think we are at 8:30 now, and I think we really have gone through the comments. There's been a couple additional comments about there is no sidewalk access to the park. I mean, that's kind of beyond the scope of our project here, but I think that we have been able to cover most of it. And another comment saying the comment about bees has been called in before. So we did put our customer service information, our line in the chat, but I think they're usually pretty responsive in getting the information to our staff, but hopefully we will get that taken care of with the new playground. And in the meantime, I think potentially we could take a look at that and see if there's anything that can be addressed right now. So I just want to, thank everybody for spending the time with us tonight and for all the comments and the questions that you provided. I think we had a good discussion. We got a lot of information, and we will follow up and we'll post the presentation and this recording on the webpage. And you will have plenty of opportunities to provide input as we move forward. So we encourage you all to go to the Open Town Hall page to complete the survey and provide comments, written comments there. And, if you have additional questions or comments that you think of later, or if, we didn't address an issue well enough tonight to your satisfaction, please reach out and feel free to contact Matt directly. And especially the neighbors, who had provided some comments. We're happy to work with you as we move forward. And before we close, though, I would like to acknowledge several other team members who have been supporting us on the call, particularly Michelle Ramirez, Melissa Chotner, and from our Public Affairs Office, who always make these meetings run smoothly. They help with all of our outreach to the public and getting signs and notices out about things that we're working on. So I want to thank them for their support and thank our entire team. As you can see by the staff on this call, all of our work is a team effort. So I just want to thank everybody for participating and for all of you for attending tonight. So Matt, do you have any final comments you want to make to close the meeting?
Just again, I'd like to express our appreciation for participating tonight, and please take the survey. There's plenty of opportunity to provide open-ended comments in the survey. And again, as Tricia mentioned, you can reach out to me, the customer service email, or Park Police, depending on what your need is. We will be sure to get, if we can't answer the question, we will get you in touch with someone that can. And again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and meeting with us tonight. We hope this is the first of many opportunities to hear from you and for you to comment on this new playground project. So thank you, everyone, and we hope you have a fantastic night.